All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tearing into some serious architectural research that exposes the hidden cybersecurity vulnerabilities lurking inside our modern networks. We all know the internet is upgrading to IPv6, right? But the real question is, what happens to our security when the old internet and the new internet are forced to live under the exact same roof? That is exactly what we're going to unpack. Think back to the year 2011. That's when the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, IANA, officially ran out of their free pool of IPv4 addresses. I want to stress this right out of the gate. This whole IPv6 transition, it's not some distant roadmap item or a future theory. We've been living in this reality for well over a decade now. And here is the brutal reality of this coexistence. As the research puts it, every transition mechanism introduces a distinct attack surface. Tunnels bypass perimeter controls. Just think about the gravity of that for a second. The exact tools we're forced to use to bridge these incompatible networks, they are actively bypassing the security perimeters we've spent millions building. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the IPv4 exhaustion reality, then look at how tunnels act as hidden backdoors. From there, we'll break down the specific risks of 6-4 and 6-4, Teredo's malware highway, the DSLite attack surface, and wrap up with how to actually secure your perimeter. All right, Section 1, the IPv4 exhaustion reality, the end of an era. Let's look at why we're forced into this awkward coexistence in the first place. The numbers here are pretty stark. Like we said, that INIA free pool dried up in February 2011, and by 2019, all 5 regional internet registries had completely exhausted their standard pools too. There are literally 0 new public IPv4 blocks just sitting around. Meanwhile, IPv6 adoption is massive. About 45% of Google users are hitting their services over IPv6 today. But here's the catch. We still have countless legacy operational technology, industrial control systems, and enterprise apps hard-coded to IPv4 that just cannot be upgraded overnight. So running both protocols side by side for decades, yeah, it's completely unavoidable. Which brings us to Section 2, tunnels, the hidden backdoors, a core complication. So how do we survive this coexistence? Mostly through tunneling. The research defines this simply as encapsulating one protocol inside another to cross incompatible infrastructure. Think of your corporate firewall as a massive fortress wall, with guards checking everyone at the gates. Well, these transition tunnels, they're basically unmapped, uninspected, underground passages dug right underneath those guards. Because of that underground routing, tunneling completely bypasses your perimeter controls. A traditional firewall usually only sees the outer encapsulated shell of the packet. It sees an IPv4 packet, thinks, looks fine to me, and waves it right through. It's completely ignoring or is just flat out incapable of inspecting that inner IPv6 payload. Threat actors absolutely know this, and they use these tunnels to waltz right past your defenses. Let's open up our threat dossier in Section 3, 6-4 and 6-4 risks, tunneling vulnerabilities. Let's look at 6-4 first. The glaring issue here, it completely lacks built-in authentication between the tunnel endpoints. So, because there's 0 endpoint authentication, any attacker who can spoof an outer IPv4 address can just inject malicious Protocol 41 traffic directly into your network. Protocol 41, by the way, is the specific protocol used for this encapsulation. The receiver on your end has no way to distinguish legit tunnel traffic from spoofed malicious packets. It's basically an open invitation for injection attacks. Now, 6-4 operates a bit differently, but honestly, it's just as dangerous, maybe even more so. 6-4 relies on public relays, and it's structurally flawed because you have absolutely zero idea who is operating the relay your data is traveling through. Literally anyone advertising the IP address 192.88.99.1 via BGP routing becomes a relay. They can intercept, modify, or silently drop your traffic at will. And on top of that, an attacker controlling a public IPv4 address can execute massive address spoofing using the derived 2002:/16 prefix. It is a fundamental trust nightmare. But if you think that's bad, wait until we look at Section 4. Teredo, the malware highway, highest security risk. So why is Teredo considered one of the absolute highest security risks out of all of these transition mechanisms? Well, it doesn't just bypass your security by accident. It was practically designed to actively punch holes right through it. Here's the deal. Teredo uses UDP encapsulation, and because it uses UDP, it silently slips right past stateful IPv4 firewalls that aren't specifically tuned to inspect it deeply. To make matters worse, Teredo uses what are called bubble packets for NAT traversal, which is basically a fancy term for hole punching. Attackers abuse these bubble mechanics to scan your internal ports and enumerate hosts right through your firewall. This is not just theoretical stuff either. Teredo is historically exploited by the massive configure worm to establish command and control channels purely because enterprise firewalls rarely blocked its specific UDP port back in the day. Moving on to Section 5, the DS Lite attack surface, dual stack light threats. DS Lite is a whole different kind of architectural nightmare. It encapsulates IPv4 inside IPv6 to cross a provider network, giving us a really nasty dual threat vector. On one side, attackers can execute what's known as B4 IPv6 spoofing. By spoofing a source address, an attacker can hijack another subscriber's NAT mappings, inject traffic into their session, or steal their return traffic. On the other side, you have the AFTR compromise. The AFTR is the central server handling the translation. All subscriber IPv4 traffic transits this server in plain text. Let that sink in. A compromise of that single server exposes the complete, unencrypted IPv4 traffic of every single subscriber connected to it. It is a catastrophic single point of failure. All right, it's not all doom and gloom. Let's look at Section 6, securing your network perimeter, mitigation strategies. So how do we actually close these hidden backdoors? The research provides some very clear mitigations. First off, you absolutely must enforce strict rule set parity. Every single permit or deny rule on your IPv4 firewall needs an exact one-to-one equivalent on your IPv6 firewall. No exceptions. Second, stop ignoring IPv6 in your audits. You have to include those addresses in all your vulnerability scans. Third, audit your application socket bindings to make sure they aren't listening on unmonitored IPv6 interfaces. And finally, take immediate action against the highest risk vectors. Definitively block UDP port 3544, both inbound and outbound. That stops Teredo dead in its tracks. When we synthesize all this threat data from the source, a really clear risk hierarchy emerges. Take a look at this matrix. Notice how dual stack and 6-4 carry a high risk, while Teredo sits right up there at very high because of that UDP NAT bypass we talked about. Meanwhile, translation technologies like SIT sit much lower on the risk scale because they require explicit access control lists. This matrix right here, this is your definitive guide for where you need to apply your security resources first. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. Your firewall is out there faithfully watching the main gates of your fortress. But who is inspecting the tunnels underneath? As you design and maintain your modern IT infrastructure, are you inadvertently building the exact underground passages your adversaries are eagerly waiting to exploit? Make sure you're checking those tunnels. Thanks for diving into this with me.